Are you ready to become a change maker? Our 48-week postgraduate program in public policy or the PGP may be just the thing for you. This hybrid program is designed to give you both the theoretical foundation and hands-on experience needed to excel in policy making. With a mix of expert-led webinars, in-person workshops, and policy simulation exercises, you'll gain real-world skills along with personalized mentorship. Through our policy programs, we connect good people to good ideas and good networks. Apply now at the link in the description to make an impact.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of All Things Policy. This is Swathi Kalyani, Research Analyst with the Geospatial Programme at the Takshashila Institution. And today, I have with me Vice Admiral S.K. Jha, retired PVSM, AVSM, NM Gallantry, and he is a former Chief Hydrographer to the Government of India. He was responsible for production of nautical charts and marine safety services. Welcome to have you here, Vice Admiral.
Thank you, Swathi. Thank you very much for calling me here.
So today what we are going to discuss is about India's drastic coastline increase. Probably what's its significance, why was it done, who does that, and what was the objectives that were there. And it comes from, I think a few months ago, India reported that there was a significant increase in its coastline, which was around 7,516 kilometer in 1970, is currently at 11,098 kilometer. So directly getting into the discussion, sir, can we start with the significance of this coastline?
Yes, let me ask you a question. I'm sure you must have gone to a beach, you would have stood in front of a beach and you would have noticed that the beach or the seacoast is the most dynamic region on the planet. We have the interaction between land, sea, and air in this part of the soil.
Yes.
You would perhaps also know that about 10% of the world's population lives within about 5 kilometers of the beach area. And an estimate says that about 90% of the cargo is moved through the sea route. Almost about 30% of the carbon dioxide is absorbed by the sea. And all of us, our second breath of oxygen, perhaps we breathe that oxygen which is produced at sea. Also, if you see the importance of the beach area or the seashore area, you would realize that the entire undersea communication cable lands on the shore area. In many parts of the world, fresh water is extracted from the sea. The waste disposal, whatever we dispose on the land, finally finds its way to sea. The sea absorbs this entire thing. But if you realize the entire scenario, you will realize that the coastal belt today faces tremendous amount of pressure. One is because of the thrust of the population, because of the livelihood of the people who are dependent on sea. Example would be almost about 5 crores of people in India are involved in fishing, and that is their daily wage earning. So if you put this entire activity together, then you will realize how important is the coastline, how important is the coastal belt, and why we should get involved taking care of looking after of our coastal belt. So therefore, all the activities, whatever is happening on the seashore, whether it is communication, whether it is movement of goods, whether it is dependence of people, coastal belt people on the sea, it requires the importance of the coastline or the sea beach area to be taken into account and preserved and looked after. That's the significance of the coastal area.
Actually, very interesting. I mean, I also realize like there are so many capital cities also which are actually, on the coastline. And as I think India discusses about this offshore wind energy that we are trying to generate, again, that is related to the coastline. So, yes, I mean, there is a lot of significance that has come out. And now talking about the technical aspect, probably getting into a bit of how geospatial technology was used. I mean, how is this coastline demarcated? What is the boundary measurement formula which is there?
So you see, in the traditional old days, surveyors were walking on the coast and fixing each and every important point on the coast, and that was tabulated, georeferenced, and thereafter published in the form of a chart. Obviously, nowadays we use the high resolution satellite imagery. Many a times, low altitude photogrammetry using UAV is used. However, I still feel that walking over along the coast, which records the minute detail, such as how the mangroves have developed, how is the flora and fauna, how it is supporting the wildlife in the area. That is done by combining all the technology available and manually approaching certain areas which is not accessible. In the coastline, when you fix, probably nowadays we go using the GPS, fix up the line or do a triangulation wherever it is possible. And that's how you establish the shoreline or the coastal area, define the coastal area. However, you see, it's very important because for establishing it, many a times when you walk along the coast, you find there are some rivers, and therefore there is a discontinuity in the shoreline. Then there are islands in between. There is a system of how to mark it, how to delineate, how to divide into various states, which state is going to claim how much, and what are the regulations which is governing this particular aspect. So establishment is done by using the technology, and demarcation of the area under various jurisdiction is undertaken based on the survey which is done by either remotely or physically walking along the coast.
Okay, and I have also like we over this geopolitical situations, we hear a lot about maritime disputes that happen. For example, the nine dash line of by China in the South China Sea, and there is also the India-Pakistan issue over the Sur Creek estuary, which comes over and over again. So, how does this coastline affect the establishment of seaward jurisdictions? What are the boundary parameters there?
You must have heard about the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea 1982.
Yes.
So the various jurisdiction is defined based on your baseline, what you call the baseline, which is the low water line on your coastal belt. This low water line is defined by undertaking the survey, and from there, various jurisdictions such as territorial sea, contiguous zone, exclusive economic zone, or continental shelf, it is marked. Coming back to these zones have been divided or have been done after a lot of study uh, to ensure the safety, security, and the economic interest of a particular nation. So, for any nation, for any country, the low water line on the largest scale chart available, that is picked up as the reference line for measuring the various jurisdiction at sea. Coming back to your question regarding South China Sea or the India-Pakistan maritime boundary limit, these are the complicated issues, but the baseline, that is the coastline when you draw, it does make a difference in claim. Let me give you an example. The maritime boundary line between India and Pakistan, it stems from somewhere in 1815 when the Maharaja of Gujarat or Kutch and the rulers of the Sindh, they had a dispute about the Sir Creek Channel, and the case landed with the then governor of Mumbai. And Governor of Mumbai gave some kind of a ruling, which was not very explicit. The center of the navigable channel was demarcated as that, as the demarcation line between both the estates. However, that ruling also said that the governor noted that the central line keeps changing because of the changing course of the Sir Creek. Now, having said that, thereafter, the issue kept coming up, and finally, a joint survey was undertaken by the Navy, and there we realized that the shoreline where the Sir Creek empties into the sea is no more the same as it used to be earlier. Even the course of the Sir Creek has already changed. Many places there is erosion, some places there is accretion. All that has happened. So it has undergone considerable amount of change. Now, both the countries they had a number of rounds of discussions to come to some conclusion, but we are still discussing and yet to come to some kind of conclusion. So this is when you draw your claim line, you draw your claim line based on your baseline. Now, the baseline is basically low water line, and there are methods for drawing, closing the line of along the river route. Then the bay areas are close by using a straight baseline. There are some islands close by, and there are regulations which is governing all of this. So that's how the jurisdiction is defined. As far as your South China Sea is concerned, I'm sure you're fully aware how China is claiming the area, the nine dashed line, the hypothetical dashed line which they have promulgated, and finally they are claiming the areas belonging to Vietnam, belonging to every country which is along the South China Sea.
Yes.
There is a legal issue, which is the International Court of Justice Tribunal has given some ruling. China is not obeying that. China has reclaimed many islands. Airstrips have been made. It is all against the established norm and the UNCLOS 1982. But they don't care. So therefore, most of these countries have taken up their issue in the international forum. They keep bringing out their concern about that, but China is bullying them, moving ahead, and they don't care. They don't care. The entire flora and fauna in that entire area has been destroyed. Many islands have been reclaimed. Airstrips have been made on the islands, and all whole lot of thing has been done there. But I suppose this is the way the he is flexing his muscle, flexing his strength, and in that area, he's declaring that it is his own backyard. That's how China is moving out. So if you take a look at the Chinese movement in our backyard here, in the Indian Ocean area, they have a large number of ships which is operating here, collecting data, trying to collect critical data for rare earth minerals, and developing their own database for the operation of their submarines or whatever it is. But they're doing it. They're doing it. We are also doing it our own bit, but they are doing it. We are doing it very, very aggressively in this part of the world. So these jurisdictions, which is now declared under UNCLOS, more or less, most of the country they adhere to that. But beyond 12 nautical miles, as you are aware, the freedom of navigation is existing, and the EEZ with certain conditions. And beyond the EEZ, it is open for people to explore with certain guidelines under International Seabed Authority. That's how the whole thing is moving. But bringing you back to your question of the shoreline, everything starts from there. Your cargo is brought back onto the shoreline where you develop your port. All facilities are developed along the port. Cities have been developed along the port, and therefore, identifying the shoreline, preserving the shoreline, and the development of facilities, which all happens along the shoreline only, wherever indentation is there, wherever there is a possibility of developing ports and harbors, that is being undertaken. All that is done after the basic survey of the shoreline and demarcation of your shoreline.
Uh, Also, now coming to the aspect that who actually does this delineation process or measurement of this coastline? What was the purpose of reevaluation? Because as we see, the last report of the around 7,000 kilometer coastline was somewhere in the 1970s. So, what was the purpose or the objective of doing that reevaluation of coastline now, or was it just because we have got the technological capability right now, or it was like a long term plan which got culminated?
Now, if you see, the earlier we had a very small scale chart, and on that small scale chart, measuring the entire coastline was extremely difficult. Initial stages, what we did was we tried to measure the distance using thread along the coastal belt, along the laid a fine thread, and thereafter straightened it, and we measured what is the distance. But you will realize that there are large number of indentations. If you take a start from Gujarat, from in Gujarat itself, when you come down from the perceived IMBL between India and Pakistan, you come down and see how the coast turns. And there are many rivers, there are many islands situated very close to the shore in the offshore area. How do you measure all this? How do you define a line which is closing a river? How do you define a line which is bay? All these have been defined in the UNCLOS, United Nations Convention, the law of the Sea, 1982. And based on that, you do that. So initially, when we did in 70s, 60s and 70s, the technology was not available. We did not have the large scale chart which will bring out clarity. Now the technology is available. We also realize that many times dispute arose between our own states that their coastline length is much larger as compared to what has been shown there. So the national authorities, we got together under the directive of the government, and then every organization sat together and we evolved a process how you're going to do it. You would be perhaps aware that Chief Hydrographer to the Government of India is a nodal agency for undertaking the hydrographic survey and publishing the national series of charts. These charts are mandatory for any merchant ship to any ship to proceed to sea. Without that, you cannot sail. You will not be allowed to proceed to sea. And now, these charts, on these charts, we have the coastline very well demarcated, which is also the reference line for the measurement of various jurisdictions. So these charts are over a period of time when we developed, we had a better scale, we had better facility, we had better software, and we could collect a good amount of data to represent the actual how long is the coastline, and that's how this exercise was undertaken. So, in nutshell, the scale of the chart was one factor. It was a very small scale chart on which exercise was done earlier. Now we have a large scale chart. The methodology adopted at that time was different. It was manual, whereas now we have the software which can calculate. And so all this together and other agencies those who have contributed towards the actual measurement of the coastline. So all this put together, a necessity was felt that we must find out actual length of our coastline. That's how this exercise was undertaken, and the revised length of the coast, 11,098.81 kilometers, has been promulgated, which is now the authentic figure.
I just want to add a question. You said an interesting fact that there were states who were claiming that they have a larger coastline than what is being recorded, right? What made them make those claims? Like, are there like states get some additional advantages of, having this on document that this is their coastline? What was that objective? Why were they putting those claims outright and demanding a revaluation?
That is because, you see, because some states whose coastline is straight, it was easier for them to measure their area. Some coastal states which had large scale development, for example, Gujarat, they realized that every few kilometers they were developing the port, When they added up together, they realized that their coastline works out to much larger because they were using the modern systems. And what was reflected earlier was on the old, very, very large scale chart. So there was a difference which was observed. This similar difference was observed in many places, and which they had sounded that there seems to be some error in calculation, and it needs to be corrected. Also, you realize, Andaman Islands completely, which is almost about 750 miles from our mainland on the east coast of India, connecting that entire area with your geodetic system of the mainland. We had difficulties, we had shifts there, it was not matching. We always found that the geographical positions were getting shifted. So finally, a simultaneous observation utilizing large number of ships was undertaken, the exercise was done, and a agreeable value has been decided. So a large amount of exercise was done, and that's how we have come to this figure of our length of coastline. And it is authentic figure. A lot of exercise has been done for this.
And how does this demarcation actually play a role in when it comes to maritime security? Like you talked about China's submarines in the Indian Ocean region, and also how does it probably affect the offshore development? As I said about the wind energy technology, and also does India have dedicated coastline observation satellites at least now? Like, do we have that enough capability to monitor and manage this?
So, you see, in the first place, you follow the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, and that demarcates various jurisdictions. For example, the territorial sea. What are your rights and obligations in territorial sea is very well defined. Similarly, what are the rights and obligations in exclusive economic zone and the continental shelf is also defined. So within this purview, whatever is your right, that right you can exercise. I will not go into detail. These are all available. The documents are available. People can study on that. But however, you realize that many a times this is violated. I'll give you an example, like fisheries rights. Earlier, we had large number of Taiwanese vessels coming and fishing in our area because their technology was a little more advanced. Their economy was based on fishing. Chinese vessels were coming and fishing here in this area, which was the violation of the UNCLOS, but it was happening. However, now you can exercise your control, whatever has been specified in the UNCLOS. So certain amount of control is being exercised now. You have your ships, which is patrolling in the area. You have your maritime patrol aircraft, which is going around and looking at it. So all that is happening there. So therefore, the demarcation of the coastline and the your various zones gives you authority for exercising your rights within a particular area. Any foreign vessel which is violating these rights, within these framework, you are allowed to take certain amount of action. So that it gives you that kind of authority. You can exercise authority only when you have demarcated this entire area. That means if you have demarcated, you say coastline, from there, everybody on a large scale chart can measure what is 12 nautical miles, what is the territorial sea, what are the rights and obligations of the territorial sea. They are aware. So if it is infringed, if it is violated, then the government can take certain amount of action. So this is the advantage of demarcating your area and earmarking certain zones. So this is one aspect. Second aspect is when you undertake the survey, you know actually what is the condition, what is the underwater condition, whether it is feasible for you to have a navigation channel established, whether it is feasible to have a picnic spot, whether it is feasible to have a the low depth area where people can go and do the snorkeling, or you can establish a wind farm, or there are areas where you can have your uh, disposal or the water desalination plant, etc., etc. There are many ways of using it. So all this will be based on undertaking your hydrographic survey and then realizing what is lying underwater and how much we can exploit, for what purpose we can exploit. So it's important for a country to undertake the survey and then understand what they can do out of that. So therefore, undertaking the surveying, identifying the potential sites for development is undertaken by a country after doing the survey.
I think the major takeaway that I have from this discussion is about the importance of the data itself, right? When we do this demarcation, when we do the reevaluation of coastline, we have the information, the accurate information of what our borders look like and what is the exact measurement. It can be state-wise, it can be in terms of the international borders also. And so I think this comes from a perspective of a researcher. Like if anybody in India wants to find this data and, for example, the measurements, the state-wise measurements, like where do we get or where do we check for such maritime-based data? What are the, like, if there is a portal for that?
You could get in touch with the Office of the Chief Hydrographer to the Government of India, and they will be able to give you. However, there are a large number of organizations that are involved. National Institute of Oceanography, Ocean Technology, Ministry of Earth Science itself is become a nodal agency for the large number of research is happening. I'm sure you are aware that under Earth Science, Ministry of Earth Science, a number of projects is presently going on. So one could get with the Earth Science, or one could get in touch with the Chief Hydrographer to Government of India to obtain information in public domain. And there are a number of charts available there, which is used by the merchant naval ships or by any ship for navigation, where lots of details are available. The depth, how is the bottom, what are the channels available there, how does the coast look like, what are the holding ground, what are the obstructions, if at all there is any, pipelines, gas pipelines, cables, etc. Everything is marked there. How should you navigate? Where should you land your ship or boat? All that you can make out from a chart. It's very, very detailed and very nicely geo-referenced area. So you should be able to navigate and find out whatever input you want. I'm sure you would be having some charts available for your students there. They can take a look at that. Otherwise, get in touch with the Office of the Chief Hydrographer to the Government of India. They have their ships operating out at sea. They collect the data and they publish the chart on behalf of Government of India. The chart which is mandatory for any ocean-going vessel to have a chart on board. So the data could be available, and for the students, if they want, they can get in touch. They will be able to help you.
Thank you, Vice Admiral, for these insights when it comes to coastline, the importance of data, the importance of advancing our technologies to measure more accurately, to record data more accurately, and even, of course, like dispersing the maps, which are much useful, much beneficial, not just for defense, but also for when it comes to trade, when it comes to tourism, and just the coastal development and the whole regional development itself. That was a very great discussion. Thank you, Vice Admiral.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a nice day.
If you liked our show, dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs. Check us out at our Twitter handle @Takshashila INST or our website takshashila.org.in.